In 2017, the New York Post reported two things about New York City and illegal sex trafficking. One, that there were more brothels than Starbucks. Two, that illegal sex trafficking in New York had become a billion-dollar industry.
Human sex trafficking is actually so common in New York that it's like how like girls will go out to the club on a Friday night. It's just not a not common thing. And it's common that it starts at 9 and 11. Like the majority of the cases, when you look back, it is when they were like 8, 9, 10, 11. So it's just, that is what I can say is way more common than we think. And it's way less obvious than we think. A lot of the Johns, and these are the guys that agree, like these are the people that paying for the sex, they are every which a person. Lawyers, doctors, judges, teachers, babysitters, janitors, husbands, fathers, police officers, you name it, it's men.
When we talk about sex trafficking, many Americans, many New Yorkers imagine it to happen in Southeast Asia, Cambodia, Thailand, someplace else, or that women are brought into the country. And that happens too. When you look at the United States, what is the profile of a prostituted girl? And I say girl because the vast majority of women and girls who enter into prostitution or are first sold into prostitution are way under the age of 18. So how does she wind up in the sex trade? And there are a number of ways. First and foremost, she runs away. So she's an adolescent, a young teen who winds up, we live in New York, so let's just take the example of Port Authority. If you talk to Port Authority police, they will tell you if we don't capture that runaway child within 72 hours, a pimp will have already sold her on the street. So the child is running away from something, right? No happy child runs away. And usually it's a child who runs away from some form of abuse in the home. And usually it's sexual abuse. So there is a very high percentage of prostituted individuals who have a history of childhood sexual violence, whether it's incest or having been raped by someone they knew, someone who was in her orbit. And so because of that violence, there is a disassociation, there is a disconnect, that then a trauma that builds, that destroys your self-esteem in a way that makes you vulnerable to pimps, to traffickers, or to anyone who thinks, you know what, if you really loved me, because now she's fallen in love with her pimp, because maybe it's the first person who's ever bought her a pair of jeans or brought her to get a burger or gone to the movies. If you really love me, this is what you need to do.
GEMS provides housing, shelter, classes, clothes. They provide a lot of services for girls that have been part of human sex trafficking. Also, they provide legal services as well. So they basically try to help girls that have been a part of the human sex traffic trade gain self-sufficiency.
There are two groups, I think, that are really going to help us move forward on this issue. One is the Survivor Network. Now we have a growing survivor movement, extraordinary women and men who have dealt with this as children, as adults, and who really can speak the truth like no one can about the violence and the dehumanization that they faced in the sex trade at the hands of sex buyers and their pimps. And then the other body that is really helpful to tap into is the medical community, which in my view is untapped yet. We have very, very little data on the harms of prostitution. And I'm not talking about the harms of trafficking or I'm talking about what does unwanted, monetized, serial sexual invasion do to a body, a human body. physically, mentally, psychically, psychologically, psychiatrically. And I think once we have that data, once we can show the pervasive devastation that a sex buyer causes or a pimp causes to an individual, I think it will be like smoking. We will not tolerate that we as a society perpetuate that type of harm